Welcome back. Former ambassadors tell Congress the State Department could do a better job at evaluating risk. The American Academy of Diplomacy suggests 3 ways the State Department can become less risk-averse. Greg Starr is former Assistant Secretary of State for Diplomatic Security. Welcome, Greg. I appreciate your time today. You said recently this: when mitigating risk becomes the top priority, then diplomats can no longer carry forward the nation's interests. Why is that the case?
Thank you, Francis. That quote is in our minds very accurate because it reflects the fact that if security is our highest priority, if our secretaries of state are saying that that's the highest priority, if Congress is saying that's the highest priority, we can't get in the field and do the things that we need to do. Foreign service officers can't meet with the people that they need to meet with. Diplomacy is an incremental process, and it isn't simply meeting with other government ministers in highly secured compounds in our highest threat level posts. We've got to get out and interact with members of the opposition, members of civil society, and others. And at our high threat posts, this is very difficult, and often our officers just can't do this type of meeting.
All right, there are 3 areas of recommendations that you and your colleagues make in this work titled Changing the Risk Paradigm for U.S. Diplomats. The first one involves the Accountability Review Board. What is that, and what would you like to see change about it?
This is legislation that was first passed as part of the Omnibus Diplomatic Security Act in 1985, so it's been around for a very long time. And in 1985, it probably was legislation that was necessary. What it calls for is that in any type of security attack on a U.S. diplomatic installation or people overseas, there must be an investigation. It's an accountability review board that is appointed. It's kind of a blue ribbon level panel that is appointed from outside the department. They look at it, they make recommendations, but simply by the name, Accountability Review Board, it has become sort of like the sword of Damocles hanging over foreign service officers' heads, who believe that if they make a decision to let somebody go out to a meeting and somebody gets hurt or somebody gets killed, that they're going to be held accountable, even though we seem to try to make sure that we're running the right levels of risk. But the legislation really is too old. It's counterproductive at this point and needs to be changed and replaced to something that all the other U.S. government agencies that are abroad have: an internal investigative process that weighs the risk, weighs the decision, that looks at things closely. We don't want to avoid accountability, but we do want to avoid the idea that's rampant around many people in the Foreign Service that you're going to be hung if something goes wrong.
The second point that you're talking about fits, I think, with a comment you made a moment ago about foreign service officers needing to be out there, needing to be present. And that's a sentiment that I hear a lot from military people as well. Your second recommendation: Department of State must identify best practices and new techniques for operating in high-threat locations. Are there lessons to learn from the Defense Department there?
Yes, some from the Defense Department, some from the intelligence community, some from other law enforcement organizations that don't seem to have the same restrictions on getting out that our foreign service officers do. As part of this study that we did, we consulted with many of the generals that we work closely with, American generals in these theaters of high threat operations. And many of them were complaining about the fact that foreign service officers couldn't even get out, even when accompanied by U.S. troops. It was too difficult a decision. We need foreign service officers, and that includes U.S. diplomats and USAID officers, foreign agricultural officers, others, to get out and interact. In places where the military is operating, that means going out with them and assuming some of the risks. We don't really want to go out and expose our people to combat missions, but the civil operations that the military does frequently should have foreign service officers with them.
We have about 90 seconds left, Greg. And the third recommendation is this: the foreign affairs agencies will have to take steps to change a culture of risk aversion that has developed over the years. Understanding culture is supposed to be one of the specialties of the Foreign Service. Why has it been so difficult to change the internal culture there?
First, it has to start with Congress. We really believe it has to start with changing this law. Second, it has to start with department leadership. And quite frankly, we've had senior leadership, to include secretaries of state, that have said security of our personnel is our highest priority. It's got to be a high priority, but the highest priority has to be carrying out the foreign affairs policies of the United States government and our national security operations. It can't be just the security of our people.
Greg, thank you very much for joining me. It's great to have you on. Congratulations on this work.
Thank you very much, Francis.